But Tim, you also had your political time in the spotlight. When was that? And you were Speaker of the House, and
Yeah.
who knows else?
Well, I ran in 1969 for the House district seat here in this district, which is the Oak Street district. And I was elected. I served in the House as a member until 1975. And then the Republicans had always been speakers. There never had been a Democratic speaker. And the Republicans had two fellows that wanted to be speaker. And it's like anything where you get two people and they split the votes so that the difference between the first and second person was 2 votes. That just didn't get enough cooperation among the party members. And it was decided that some people were going to vote for whoever they wanted to. So I got into the race, and we had 45 Democrats out of 150.
The numbers were not in your favor.
That's right, exactly. And somehow, by talking with people, going around and visiting with them, and it was always, in those days, the tendency was to promise people, you want to be on Appropriations Committee, you'll be on Appropriations Committee. I made it a pledge that, look, I'm not going to tell you what committee you're going to be on. I can't tell you. I haven't been elected. I want to see who all the people are who get elected, and then we'll make those decisions on a bipartisan basis. I said, you know, people are going to think that, boy, a Democrat gets elected, there's going to be a dramatic change. And the day of the election, I was, you know, I didn't know what to expect. And we got 77 votes. And I had Mike Obohosky from Bellows Falls helping me. And Mike was my chief counter. He would go and try to figure out where people were. And he came up with the fact that we had 76 votes. So when I got elected, and parties all over there, and we went over to the hotel and talked, and I said, Mike, your first job is find out who that 77th vote was. We never did, and it didn't really matter. But what it did is it changed the dynamic, because now the Republicans were real concerned about, wow, we've had all these positions, we've had all the chairmanships. I think Tom Salmon was the only one when I was in the first 6 years who had a chairmanship, but they were very few. So I got a little committee together of 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, and the chief Republican was Dick Snelling. He was in the House at the time, and Tom Candon was the chief Democrat. And we got together and we sat down, and I listened to what they had to say and what their preferences were for this one and that one. And we put together the first Democratic Speakers Organization for House Committee. And I'm not saying there weren't people who were upset, but I found that by and large, everyone felt that they had been given a fair hearing, and that I had not put somebody, which they used to do in the old days, on fish and game because I was upset at them for something that they did in the 6 years that I was just in the House and not voting on a bill for me.
Turns out that's an important committee, actually, in the state of Vermont.
It is, but it was like a death knell to some people.
Right.
And so it was a challenge, but I think it was something that I was able to learn a lot from, because you were dealing with 149 people, and every one of them thought that they were the #1 person, and you'd have to deal with them and try to figure out what to do. And I think it worked well. I mean, I was the first speaker to be elected for 3 straight terms since, I think it was James Martin from Londonderry was elected in 1875. I think that's what my recollection is, that he got 3 terms, but he was a Republican.
Now, you weren't there at the time, were
Oh,
you?
I wasn't there at that time. No, God no. And so it was an interesting experience. It was really a chance to see how people from various parts of the state, and you'd say to yourself, my gosh, this fellow's from Lunenburg. First of all, where is Lunenburg? And you'd figure it out. And I sometimes would take a trip in the summer and go and visit the people from up in the Northeast Kingdom. And it was a beautiful area, but you know, not many people and not much industry. And most of them were just little farmers. But you get a sense of why they were voting sometimes as opposed to someone who is here in Brattleboro. And so the process is really worthwhile to study, you know, to try to figure out the dynamics.
What advice, based on your experience, what advice would you give a current governor, a current legislature, in terms of how do you do your job so that it best serves the people of the state of Vermont?
Well, one of the things that I did, and I think it was because of the fact that I was the first Democrat, and people didn't know what I was going to do, except they thought that I would just get everybody who were Democrats, and I'd be meeting with them, and I would not meet with the Republicans. So what I tried to do, and Tony Bernchinsky from Brattleboro, he was my mentor when I first went up there, because he'd been up there for a long time. He suggested to me we ought to have, and we called it Farmers' Night, every Wednesday night. And that would involve, for anybody who wanted to go, we'd get down at one of the restaurants, them to get fish. It would be a fish fry. And we'd invite everybody.
Didn't
Democrats, didn't matter what it was. Come down, find out what the story is. And then we'd have some entertainment up at the Capitol in the well of the house. And one of the things that Tony would do is he'd get the Kern-Hatton Band to come up. And, you know, people learned a lot about Kern-Hatton who never knew anything about Kern-Hatton. And they'd put on a nice show. And then afterwards, if you wanted, you could go over to the tavern. You could go anywhere you want. But I got people talking with one another. I'll never forget a little party we had at the Brown Derby where the fellow from Kirby, John, oh gosh, I can't think of his name. He writes in the paper now for the Ethan Allen Institute, still a politician, is a Republican. He came and he said to me when he left, he said, Tim, I've never been to anything Democratic. I said, don't say this is Democratic in the sense that it's a party meeting. This is us. We're the legislature and we're all equal, and party should not be important. And I think they've gotten away from that. It's the party label, so we can't vote yes or no because we have to vote as the party.
So you took what could be a common denominator. In that instance, it was farming. And the common denominator transcended party lines, party labels.
That's right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And by bringing people together, just even in a social situation, it allowed them to perhaps work better in their official capacities.
That's right. And you know, I used to find in my first 6 years up there that it was, you were 45 in number and you were like a dunce. You really did. You weren't effective. We don't need you. We've got enough votes to get a majority, so listen to what we say. And I think we got it so that everybody felt that they were participating.
And so what specific advice can you give so that we can get back to that relationship?
Well, I met 2 years ago Shap Smith, and I suggested that he consider doing this Wednesday night deal. And I said, who you should talk to is Mike Obohosky, because Mike got it back into play when he was Speaker. And I know Steve Morris did it when he followed me, and
Oh,
he
they
did
let a
it.
Republican in after the Democrat.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I think there's something to be said about sitting down in the cool, with no pressure, with someone else that you're trying to work something out with, and you may be able to make them think, he's not an albatross. He's got something to say, or she's got something to say. So.
Now, you continued politically in Brattleboro somewhat. You've been the town moderator at the town meeting for how many years now?
Well, I think it's 20 years this year, 1991, so 20 years.
And that's a job you've enjoyed?
I've enjoyed that. I have enjoyed that.
And what changes have you seen in our town rep meetings over the years, or in your presiding over those meetings?
I think the meetings tend to be longer, okay? But when you look at that, you only have timing when you're playing a sporting event. You're going to play a basketball game, you're going to have 40 minutes, and you got to do it in 40 minutes. I don't think you can put a restriction. This meeting is only going to go for 2 hours, because that's an imposition on the right to speak. I think what we have found is that people are more interested in some of the issues than they were when I first started, and they do spend time trying to find out solutions so that our meetings are longer, but the information that you gather, I think, strengthens the result of the vote that you take, because they're kind of, they take their responsibility serious.
And you've found that each and every year.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reflection of the Brattleboro community. Now, in a sense, you get to monitor the pulse of the Brattleboro community, even just by being a town moderator.
That's right.
And I've always felt, and as others, that we have a very strong community, regardless. We may have disagreements as to particular policies or implementation of policy, but the caring for the community is present regardless.
Yes.
And how have you seen our sense of community, or the community itself, how we interact, change over the years? We're sort of looking at the past and where you think we're going.
Well, I think there's been good reaction for things that have been started, and groups have said, well, let's not be involved again. We're going to disband it. And the one that comes to my mind is the fact that the Chamber had sponsored the 4th of July parade, and they announced that they weren't going to have the 4th of July parade. And I, with some other people, put together the 4th of July parade last year. And we found that the response of people in the community was gratifying, because they wanted to see the parade. They enjoy the events that are up at the park. Carol Lolot does a wonderful job up there. And it gives everybody a chance to go and have a fun day at a limited price. The only thing you really pay for up at the park is if you buy food.
Want a hot dog.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
But you stepped up to the plate. I mean,
well, I stepped up with other people. I kind of took the ring to get it started, just to see what we could do. And I was gratified with what people did. I had people who call me and say, Tim, we'll send you $25. I said, that's wonderful, and it's hard. Bands are expensive, but if you can have 1 or 2 bands and you have some floats and you get some competition among the youngsters, I think it's just another shot in the arm that this community is doing things. And we've seen such things too as the museum and the programs that they put on, and shows that they offer. Even the other Saturday, probably 2 weeks ago, the library had a nice program. They had Vincent Feeney down, and he talked about his book on Ireland and the Irish in Vermont. So, we seem to offer diverse things for a very diverse community. And you even think on restaurants. You know, we've got Japanese, we've got
Korean,
we've got
Thai,
Thai, and God, I tell you,
Italian.
Italian, yes. No Irish restaurant, but that's all right.
That could be your next career.
Gosh, no. Oh, no.
Well, we used to have cows in the fields, and some of them have migrated to strolling in the streets.
Streets, that's right.
Strolling
Yeah,
of the heifers.
that's a great thing, not only for the community, but that's a great attraction from people out of town coming in.
So you see Brattleboro, you saw Brattleboro as a vibrant community. You
Yes.
still think we're vibrant and
I still think we are
spirited.
vibrant. Yes. You know, in the recent inclusion of the yogurt factory, 35 new jobs out there,
Right.
those are the kind of things I think that we're going to have to look for. I don't think the days of the book press and 250 people working, I don't think those days are going to be
Are coming back.
coming back.
So how can we attract a company, a business that can employ, if not 250 people, 30 people here, 20 people there, 50 people here, that really does then trickle down and improve our community?
Well, I think, you know, I mentioned the broadband. I think they got to have I think communications is the key.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do have some problems with where can we put some of these new things. And you know, that's, you know, I think Brattleboro Development has got that place up at the old book press where they've been putting in businesses. I think we just got to keep the name out there. As Jerry Goldberg says, Brattleboro is the only Brattleboro.
Right, those are great signs.
Yes.
The only one, the
the
one and only
one and
Brattleboro.
only Brattleboro, yeah. So,
This is true.
yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, you go after people. I think this is a tough economic time for everybody. So I don't think that it's going to happen in a year. Let's hope it happens 2 or 3 years down the road.
Now, rumor has it that you are going to be retiring from your legal career.
That's right.
Is that rumor substantiated?
That rumor is substantiated, yes.
And how long have you been practicing law?
I was admitted in 1961, so I've been 50 years.
So you went to Holy Cross for college. So
Yes.
that required a bit of absence from the state.
Yeah.
And then you went to the Hoyas.
Down at Georgetown.
Down in
That's right.
Georgetown in Washington.
For 3 years.
And so you were absent from Vermont then. But you returned.
But I returned.
And did you always know that you'd be coming back?
Well, to be honest with you, I had thought it would be nice to work in Washington to get some experience for 3 years and then come back. But my wife said, we're going to get married in June of 61 and we're going to live in Vermont. And she was teaching school in Cromwell, Connecticut.
Oh, my.
So she won that battle, and she's won most of them.
I'd stick with you and just go along with it, is my sense.
That's right. That's right.
Most of the time, she knows exactly where she's going, and it's the right destination.
That's right. That's right.
But tell us a little bit about your legal career. And again, we're looking back, we're looking forward, the changes that you've observed in that profession in this town.
Yeah. And you know, I've had the opportunity to kind of look back at that because I'm trying to get my files at the office sorted out. And I got, you know, the usual 4-drawer file cabinet, and you can see the first 10 file cabinets. You got to take a file out. If you had a real estate closing, you have a deed, and it's a copy on carbon paper. And then you have the tax stamps that you bought or you didn't use. And then you've got a yellow sheet, and on the yellow sheet, you've got the closing statement. And then if there was a mortgage or a discharge or mortgage, you got to copy that, and that's it. And it's amazing how small the files are. You take a file now, we had a deal that we did just the beginning of the week, and we got it through the internet, which is a great thing, but it was 84 pages. And I said to myself, you know, why why is it that it's getting so difficult to put a deal together to have people? I think a lot of people feel that, my gosh, the bank's got a mortgage on everything. They mortgaged my kids. They mortgaged me my car and everything. It's just the way that the whole practice has changed in what you need to do, and some of it you wonder if it's really that important when you see a transaction you did 50 years ago and there was minimal pieces of paper.
You're retiring because you're running out of room for the files. That must be the reason.
Well, I think that's part of the reason.
So, Tim, in the course of cleaning your office in anticipation of your retirement, have you come across any skeletons in your closets or in your file cabinets?
Well, I found an interesting one, and it dates back to 1960. It has nothing to do with the law business, but it was a menu from the old Hotel Brooks. They had a dining hall where the hair salon is, just down below the tunnel that goes out into the Harmony parking lot. And they were advertising a special hot turkey with all of the accoutrements, $1.95. But the big thing was martinis and Manhattans, 75 cents per drink.
Well, don't you think we should reinstitute that policy in Brattleboro somewhere?
I think we should, but I don't know who to talk to. So,
well, I hope that your retirement will allow you to spend more time in Ireland. I've had the privilege of working with you over the years, and it has been a privilege. It has certainly helped my career. I've always known that I could call you on any topic, any matter, that you would be available to help. I also knew over the years that your word was good, and when you said you would do something, or this is the way it was, I could rely on that, and that's a tremendous gift, and I think reflective of our community, and you are an example of that, so I thank you for that.
well, thank you for your kind words.
Well, thank you. So will you get to spend more time in Ireland?
Yes, I think this year Martha and I will be married 50 years, so we're going to go for 5 weeks. And it will give us an opportunity to go to a lot of the places we probably have been to, but we enjoy the people immensely.
Good. Well, enjoy.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. I'm Robin Stern. I'm hosting Neighbor to Neighbor today. Our guest was Tim O'Connor. I hope you enjoyed our show and will join us on the next Neighbor to Neighbor. Thank you.